Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is 3:00 p.m. Welcome to the first TPB meeting of the year, February 10th. All right, we do have a quorum, so we will move ahead. So the first item of regular business is the approval of the TPB minutes. The agenda for today, February 10th. We like to approve the agenda. Thank you. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for today. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right, moving along. Next item is the approval of the TPB minutes from December 9th, 2025. Any discussion or anybody like to make a motion? Is there a second? Second. All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All right, motion passes. All right, next we have director's report. Chad, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members of the Transportation Policy Body. Good afternoon. Welcome. Our mayor from Andover is joined as well. Our TPB board. So we have first this item. We have reports to present to you from staff and myself, starting with Unified Planning Work Program. That is both 2025 and 2026. And Marky here. Marky, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to see everyone back this year. So we'll just do our quarterly update, and then this update is for all of 2025. This table should look familiar. It's part of our Unified Planning Work Program and our quarterly updates with that. So just as a refresher, the Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, is our primary planning and budgeting document for the calendar year, so all of 2025. And then we have this table that outlines some of our priority projects and then the status of all of those, which is updated quarterly. So in your packet and then on the slides, quite smaller here, is that same table with the updated statuses for those 2025 projects. And then we've also completed our activity report, which we submit to KDOT as part of our quarterly reimbursement package. So that will show all of the details with a lot more information about what we've been working on and the progress of everything. Rather than go through all of these, I will just highlight a few from 2025, including Metropolitan Transportation Plan, or MTP 2050. That was our big thing in 2025, and we did, thanks to your help, we did have that approved, and so that is the long-range plan for the region. We also have our ongoing safety initiatives, other planning documents, the completion of our annual single audit, which is in the first quarter of every year, ongoing safe routes to school plan development, ongoing administration of our transportation improvement program, completion of the regional intelligent transportation systems architecture update. Those are just a few. More details are in there. I just don't want to take up too much of your time since we do have a full agenda, but I am happy to answer any questions about any of those on there if you have any.
Thank you, Marky. Can we elaborate on any of the items in this? We're happy to elaborate. Just for the benefit of new members, UPWP is Unified Planning Work Program, federally required document, and Marky and staff coordinates with the Kansas Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration, both in terms of tasks as well as budgets. And then every year, those tasks, some overlap in the next year, some gets completed. Those are updated along with the estimates of the costs. And if some of the costs and estimates change, there is an amendment process also in the year. So this is generally all documented in Unified Planning Work Program.
Yes.
So no. Thank you, Marky.
Yeah. And then switching gears to our 2026 Unified Planning Work Program, as Chad said, a lot of these items are carried over from the 2025 one, but since it is the beginning of the year, we wanted to introduce you to our priority projects table. This is the table that will be updated and shared with this body quarterly to kind of give the status update on some of those major important projects and tasks that we are working on. You'll see the quarters that are definitely in this year as well as for future years. Most of them are multi-year projects, as you will see in there. Some of them, for example, the development of the 2027 through 2030 Transportation Improvement Program. That one, since we are anticipating the development completing, there is both a line item for that as well as for general TIP administration. But I'm happy to go through those as well if anyone has any questions or would like some more information.
Thank you, Marky. And Unified Planning Work Program is prepared by every MPO in every state. This is common. And then MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, is a long-range document, long-range plan development every 5 years. And then TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, is a committed short-range. Every 2 years, it's updated as well. So these three documents are developed by staff at every MPO. So here also WAMPO staff strives to make sure all of these are up to date, and then it complies with the requirements, the way it should be coordinated and so on. So thank you, Marky.
Thank you.
So we have next item, a couple of items. Peter is here to report to us and on TIP, that is Transportation Improvement Program, and then a study upcoming. Thank you, Peter.
Good afternoon, TPB members. We have our regular bi-monthly update, which requires programs receive WAMPO suballocated federal funding in the current federal fiscal year, or that have received it in the past but are not yet finished. So as per our convention, I'll go through the ones that will obligate some portion of their funding in this federal fiscal year. So we have the Southwest Butler Road Improvements Project from Southwest 170th Street to Southwest 150th Street. It let in October of 2025, still has some funding to obligate this year, along with the Wichita Intelligent Transportation System, which let in October of 2025, with some additional suballocated funding as well to be received in 2026. Then we have the Rock Road Corridor Improvements Project, anticipated to let in May of this year, and the Redbud Multi-Use Path near Rock Road, Phase 2, anticipated to let in June of 2026. And a quick asterisk on the Rock Road Corridor improvements. We're working on the next bi-monthly update. That anticipated let date will probably move about a month, probably into June, related to some timing of federal fiscal funding. We have this map of those projects on packet page 14. As always, we have provided our table of non-suballocated federal funds in the WIM and the WAMPO TIP after the last approved amendment, Amendment 6 on page 13. Any questions on the bi-monthly update? Our next item, we have the Household Travel Survey Consultant Contract Update. The last time we spoke about this, I believe, was in the previous year, and I just want to give you a quick update. So in 2025, in accordance with the 2025 Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, WAMPO staff issued a request for proposals for a consultant to prepare and implement a regional household travel survey. A selection committee held interviews in fall of that year and identified a preferred consultant for contract negotiations. The final contract is anticipated to include about $900,000 of expenses. It is anticipated that a contract will be presented for TPB approval later this spring. And I just want to give a quick background, since it's been a while since we've talked about this project. So the new up-to-date Household Travel Survey data will support our federally required long-range transportation planning documents, including but not limited to our Metropolitan Transportation Plan and our congestion management process. Development of these plans requires a deep, granular understanding of current regional travel patterns and the capacity to forecast them in the future. To ensure plans are based on reliable, accurate data, MPOs conventionally perform regional-wide household travel surveys, typically on a 10-year cycle. WAMPO, we did our last one in 2011, but it's been delayed to avoid the short-term effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The goal for this survey is to get complete survey data from at least 2,000 households. A complete survey response from a household includes, at a minimum, a 24-hour travel log for every household member, including trip purposes, travel modes, trip origin and destinations, and trip start and end times. Data collection is often aided by cell phone applications, website portals, or toll-free telephone numbers connecting to a call center. The method of survey completion submittal is chosen by the survey taker according to their comfort level and at their discretion. It is always, of course, all voluntary. The scope, so in many household travel surveys, among like 97 to 98% in some HCS surveys, either do not respond to survey requests or fail to complete their survey. So we wanted to demonstrate kind of the scope. So initial outreach may include reaching out to maybe 68 to 100,000 households to achieve the goal of at least 2,000 complete survey responses. And to give a little bit of context, as of the 2020 census, the WAMPO region had approximately 214,000 households. So initial outreach may be about to a third to a little bit of half of all the households in the WAMPO region. And then to talk about kind of what this will provide us, the survey results will provide up-to-date input data critical to the WAMPO travel demand model. It forecasts future traffic volumes and congestion on the regional transportation network, critical for long-range planning, specifically some of our documents. And the TDM is also made available to WAMPO's federal, state, and local partners as a shared planning resource. So if someone has a project they'd like to see the effects of by how it might affect traffic once it's built, or if you need to close a road, we can model that in this system and provide that data for them. So in summary, the HTS or Household Travel Survey data supports our federally required long-range transportation planning activities. They're typically completed on a cycle every 10 years. Our last one was completed in 2011. The final contract for a consultant to prepare and implement the next HTS is anticipated to include about $900,000 of expenses. It is anticipated that a contract will be presented later this spring or in this spring. And we just wanted to give a quick update on this, just so we're aware when this contract does come up.
This is Bert. Can I ask a question on that, please?
Certainly.
So a couple things. If we're looking at $900,000 and we have cameras everywhere on the roads to check volume, there's electronic ways to check volume. If you have such a low percentage rate on these, and I'm sure that percentage rate is even skewed to certain parts of the county or our district, why would we, I guess my real question is, if we did one 10 years ago, how has that really impacted our results of what we're doing to offset a $900,000 expense?
So with that in mind, we looked at trying to accomplish the same. I suppose this isn't quite as looking at the cameras and things around the city, but trying to accomplish a similar goal through different big data sources. The issue that we kept running into is that those samples push towards the mean. So if you're looking at a very common traveler, something that would represent, a household that maybe has one or two or has a household volume of 1 to 2 people within it, you can often get that from big data. But if you try to start looking at a larger sample, or if you really want to have more accurate predictions, specifically for some of your larger households that represent a lot of your suburbs, if you try to pull from these data, pull that kind of insight from big data sources, it doesn't really translate. You end up having much, much less reliable or meaningful results. And then Chad, would you like to chime in?
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Mayor, for the question. And what little I learned, I want to share this as well, Mayor, with you. We were preparing for this project since 5 years because, MPOs, it's common for MPOs to perform this task, both household travel surveys as well as updating travel demand model. Even on Federal Highway Administration website and the best practices, these sampling methods and these types of surveys were recommended. So we were following those that are common and best practices for any planning agency to have, to plan for the future. A good forecasting model is also required. And these are the reasons, Mayor, why this is one of the tasks for MPO staff. Just also want to share another example. When I was in Columbus, Ohio, between 2004 to 2015, they had like $4 million or so dollars set aside for updating such activity. That was passed, but most recently, in the past 6 months, the St. Louis, Missouri MPOs had awarded and selected a consulting firm for about 2.5 million, between 2 and 3 million, to conduct both household travel surveys and also update the travel demand model. So looking at, we are in a good shape on, we were preparing for this project like around 1.5 to 2 million, but Peter and I were pleased to see a competent consulting firm who has submitted their proposal for 900,000. So I believe, and staff also, Peter also learned that, we did a lot of research on how we are spending, what we are accomplishing, how this is going to be beneficial. So happy to share more, Mayor, if more questions come up. Thank you.
Mayor, sir, do you have any other questions?
Well, I don't know that that answered my question with regards to the impact. If we think about the awards that we give out annually, and the way we are trying to plan in the future, I understand the idea of having a long-range transportation plan. I'm just not 100% bought into the fact that a survey, whether it's 1.5 or $900,000, there's some projects out there that could use that $900,000, not just for this expense. But anyway, I mean, I concur that good research has been done. I don't question that. I don't question staff's time. I just question that we do these type of things and then we wonder, we always ask ourselves, is there any outcome? I mean, can someone point to something that this particular survey drove a decision that brought something into the region or was made us available for more funding because of it? And it could just be because of the absence of it, but that's my thoughts. So thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Aristry. Often with these travel demand forecasts, they can be included in grants and sometimes in early project development. But to answer your question of, was this travel demand forecast that was, part of this grant that showed how a project would affect the total outcome, that decisive key turning factor is hard to say, but it does have that practical use. As you described, in the absence, if that wasn't part of the grant, would the grant made it? It's one of those questions that is difficult to fully encapsulate.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, and thank you, Mayor. We'll continue to work on, making sure that the transportation planning has sound judgment and data, that is data-driven planning process is documented well, Mayor, how these are, how the travel patterns in the community we learn, and we request the consulting firm to share with this group as we progress into this study, Mayor. We'll do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next item, I think Nick has item to report to you on, the TIP call for projects. This is an important phase because, request for call for projects is, until March 6th. So Nick has some information to share. Thank you, Nick. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And the project selection committee also will be meeting soon to address the suballocated funding balances. That also, these are the two items Nick has for reporting to you.
Thank you, Chad. A couple months ago, we received word from KDOT that there is a change in how suballocated funding is to be managed in Kansas MPOs. Previously, up through FFY 2025, there was a so-called limitation distribution on each of the funding programs that WAMPO and Mark, the Kansas City MPO, had on their sub-allocated federal funding programs. This was about 85% of the true allocation. The reason it was a limitation distribution of 85% was to provide a cushion at the end of the year to prevent accidental over-programming. The idea was that this would be resolved during August redistributions each year. However, the way things stand now, KDOT decided to not do limitation distributions anymore, and therefore we now have the full allocations to make sure to program in 2026 and beyond. And this does not just mean for the money newly appropriated for, or excuse me, allocated for those years, but also the carryovers from past years, as they're going to 100% versus 85% on those past years. As a result, we now have substantially more that needs to be programmed in 2026 and beyond than we previously could have known before there was this change in policy at the KDOT level. And in response to that, and the instruction from KDOT to try to get our balances all down to zero by the end of 2028, the Project Selection Committee met on the 22nd of January to make recommendations of how to begin to address this, starting with our current TIP projects that have sub-allocated funding on them. And there will be another opportunity for projects to potentially absorb some funds when the PSC meets again in regard to the new TIP development in March and April. However, for this initial round, the PSC made their recommendations on January 22nd. They'll be brought to the TAC for a recommendation on February 23rd. And then this body, the TPB, will be asked to approve or disapprove the PSCs and tax recommendations 1 month from today on March 10th. And then that would then lead into these changes being incorporated into the TIP through Amendment 8 to the 25 to 28 TIP, which would go to the TAC on March 23rd and to the TPB on April 14th for an approval vote. That would be able to provide an opportunity for projects that in 2026 to get this funding onto them before they obligate. That was the reason for the PSC meeting so early, as opposed to just folding it into their meetings in March and April when they'll consider projects for the new TIP. It was to make sure that they get things in time for projects to get funding on them before they obligate and therefore cannot have their sub-allocated funding increased. So that is the timeline to look forward to at your next meeting. Bottom line, look forward to having some PSC recommendations to vote on to address the surplus of sub-allocated funding. And that leads us into the other round of stuff TIP related. The FFY 2027 to 2030 TIP call for projects, which is currently in progress February 2nd through March 6th. This call for projects is a funding opportunity for suballocated funding during the period of 27 through 30, though more so 29 and 30. There may be some leftover funds in 27 and 28, but it'll be mostly 29 and 30. So get this down. It is a funding opportunity, so please get those projects in. But also, any project that is federally funded, whether it's suballocated funding or any other federal funding source that you get through KDOT or Wichita Transit or an earmark, is required to be in the TIP, as well as any project that is regionally significant but not federally funded also needs to be in the TIP. And therefore, please also get these projects in. We sent out invitations to submit projects for this call for projects to all of the jurisdictions on February 2nd, and we will be happy to follow up with you on that as need be. There's also information on the TIP webpage of our website about this, including the application form. And this Thursday, there is a workshop for application submittal questions. This will be a drop-in type office hours type of workshop, 9:30 to 11:30 this Thursday. And the URL for that online workshop is in the application materials and in the email that invited jurisdictions to put in projects for this. Now here's the rest of the timeline for the new TIP development, just so you know what to expect over the coming months. We are currently in the call for projects through March 6th. Then there will be project selection committee meetings in March and April for recommendations of suballocated funding. On April 27th, the TAC is expected to make a recommendation on those new PSC recommendations. Then a TPB vote on those on May 12th. In May and June, the Kansas Department of Transportation, the FHWA, and the FTA will review the draft TIP document, which will go to a 30-day public comment period, June 11th through July 10th. And finally, the TAC will make a recommendation on the overall TIP on July 27th, and on August 11th, the TPB will be asked to vote on the overall final TIP for 27 through 30. With the idea being that way we can get it all done before the start of federal fiscal year 2027. So there's no gap there. Any questions before we move on?
Thanks, Mike. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Kim has an update on Regional Transit Committee. We had a study recently done, but it is time that Kim is starting a good initiative. Thank you, Kim.
Good afternoon, everyone. WAMPO staff are proposing the establishment of a Regional Transit Coordination Committee. This would support public transit-related planning, implementation strategies, and of course, innovative ideas and practices. The committee would serve as a forum advisory to this group and would include member jurisdictions, transit providers, and invited stakeholders. We would be asking them to, of course, review and look at those identified strategies that were developed during the Regional Transit Implementation Plan, and to discuss any current projects that are underway or planned. Again, share innovative ideas and practices, and encourage dialogue between our jurisdictions so that we can really address the regional transit concerns and barriers. WAMPO staff would provide the facilitation and technical support, so there would not be a major cost to this initiative. A TAC recommendation and a TPB vote on the formation of such committee will be sought in the upcoming meetings. So at the next February 23rd meeting for TAC, we will be seeking the recommendation, and then we will bring it back to you next month for discussion and vote. So any questions on the Regional Transit Coordination Committee? We just want to make sure this really good plan doesn't just sit on the shelf. So we want to make sure this work is carrying forward.
Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you so much, Mr. Chair, for allowing all the reports.
Oh, sure. Thank you. And it's always great to hear all the reports, all the great things going on. All right, our next item is item D, the consent agenda. So we have two items. We have a facility and administrative support service agreement extension. Peter, did you want to talk about that or no?
So we have a 3-year agreement that will be expiring soon for facility and administrative support services. So in February 2023, WAMPO entered an agreement with Sedgwick County for administrative support and use of their county facilities. Provides WAMPO with office space, utilities, HR, and IT support. WAMPO pays Sedgwick County $30,000 per year. The original contract duration was 3 years, expires in 2026. The proposed agreement extension would extend the agreement for an additional 3 years with the exact same terms.
All right, thank you. And the other item on the consent agenda is the executive director 4% salary increase, retroactive to January 1st, 2026. So the executive meeting met last week, and we all agreed, you're doing a great job, Chad, so keep it up. And I appreciate everything that you and the staff are doing. So are there any questions, or would anybody like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Okay.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you. All right, moving on is the item number 3, public comment opportunity. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak today? If so, you have up to 3 minutes. Nobody? All right, we will move on. The next item is the action. We have 3 action items. The first action is the election for the chair, the vice chair, and the TAC chair elections. So we are able to hold position for 2 consecutive years. It's been 1 year for each of us. So we will go ahead and take nominations for the chair. And we've already talked. I know myself and vice chair and the TAC chair have all agreed to stay on another year if that is your desire. So anybody like to make a nomination?
I make a motion, we approve the slate as you stated.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the slate as presented. Are there any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, and thank you for your for this opportunity to serve. And I'm sure the other 2 feel the same way. So thank you. All right, next item is the FFY 2025 through 28 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment number 7. Peter, welcome again.
Thank you, Chair Kessler. Moving on, we have our public review and comment schedule for amendment number 7. It was on the public comment period from January 2nd to January 16th. We had the TAC recommendation on January 26th, which brings us to today, February 10th, for consideration for TPP's vote. So you can check out the full details of the amendment summary that is shown on the screen as an attachment linked in your packet, and at the link at the bottom of the webpage, URLs shown. There are 13 projects in Amendment 7 that have requested changes that require TAC TPP approval, 6 requests for new projects, and 7 projects to be modified. In addition, we'd like to give notice of smaller changes to 6 projects that don't require formal approval. These are just administrative adjustments, such as minor cost changes or year of activity or updating contact information. You can see this page here in your packet on page 26 that shows all of the different projects. And then as our convention, I'll go through the ones that require formal action, starting with the Meridian Street and Multi-Use Trail, sponsored by the City of Hayesville. Update to the project scope. We have City of Wichita, 17th Street North, I-135 to Hillside. A cost increases in there, paid for with local funds, with a shift of MPO SDBG funding from construction to construction engineering. We have several KDOT-sponsored projects, including the I-135 north of US 54 interchange, north to 21st interchange. There was a cost increase, again, paid for with federal and state funds. KDOT sponsored project in Park City at St. Clair for an EV charger. That's a new project. Another KDOT sponsored project on K96 from I-135 to I-135. It is an update to that project that includes updates to the project limits and project notes. We have another KDOT sponsored project, the US 54 on East Kellogg Avenue in Sedgwick and Butler counties. They updated the project scope, no project or no total cost changes there. We have KDOT's I-235, the ramps located on I-235 and K96 junction. That is a new project. We have various intersections in Sedgwick County as a new project, and then also several intersections in the city of Bel Air. These include some simple pavement marking and safety upgrades, like different signage, smaller projects on that kind of scale. So Then we have another KDOT, the capacity improvements from Woodlawn to Rock Road on K96. That is a new project. We have Wichita's Transit, FTA 5339 program, grants for buses and bus facilities. They updated the project scope, slight increase in project costs paid for with FTA 5339 and local funds. We have the FTA 5310 program sponsored by Wichita Transit, the enhanced mobility of seniors and individuals with disabilities. There was an increase in project cost, again, paid for with FTA 5310 and local funds. And then finally, a hybrid bus purchase sponsored by Wichita Transit. That is a new project. In this amendment, there is no net changes to the WAMPO suballocated or WAMPO awarded funds. And then, of course, we have our summary table on the total amounts of federal funding, state funding, and local funding on projects. A summary table of all of the funding changes on the projects. Then finally, our Amendment 7 doesn't meet requirements. It had a public comment review period, is consistent with the current Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Metropolitan Transportation Plan 2050. It's fiscally constrained, adds $158.8 million in additional funding. Which brings us to our action options. Before I read them, any questions on Amendment number 7?
Anybody have any questions for Peter? If not, would anybody like to make a motion for approval of the FFY 2025 through 28 TIP Amendment number 7 as presented? We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, thank you. All right, the next item is item C, supporting the KDOT federal performance measures target. Peter?
Okay. So some background. This will be the 23, 24, 25, 26, the fourth year of us proposing to support KDOT's targets. In the past 3 years, we've chosen to support these targets. So in general, the FHWA and FTA jointly issued a planning rule to document changes in the statewide and metropolitan planning processes, consistent with the Moving Ahead for Progress Act, or in the 21st century, or MAP 21, the Fixing America's Surface Transportation FAST Act, and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA. This planning rule specifies the requirements for state departments of transportation and metropolitan planning organizations to implement a performance-based approach to planning and programming. There are 3 FHWA performance measures, 1 FTA Transit Asset Management Rule, or TAM, and 1 FTA Transit Safety Rule. And generally, after a state DOT establishes its performance measure targets, MPOs within that state must either support the state targets or establish their own performance measure targets. In 2025, the WAMPO TPP chose to support KDOT in achieving the performance measure targets for PM1 safety, PM2 bridge and pavement conditions, PM3 system performance, and TAM. As they do every year, because these are annual ones, they have updated their PM1 safety goals for 2026. You can see those here. We also have our pavement and bridge condition goals. Those ones have not been updated, and that's just per routine cycle. So they set targets for 23 and 25. State DOTs, including KDOT, are developing new targets for 27 and 29. It's anticipated that these will be set for TAC and TPP consideration in early 2027. It is the very similar story for system performance measure, which generally looks at congestion metrics and performance of the transportation system, like how reliable is it, how consistently can you get where you want to go on time. State DOTs, again, are developing new targets for 27 and 29. It's anticipated that we'll have new targets in early 2027 for this performance measure. And then I wanted to mention on this transit asset management, this one, there was a late revision on one of the TAM target, or 2 of the TAM targets on the equipment for automobile and minivan that are different than what is listed in the packet. You just had some late breaking ones there. Again, the state DOTs are developing new TAM plans, and they will have a whole new TAM plan for 2027 with new revised targets. Which finally brings us to our action items. Approve supporting KDOT's federal performance measure targets as of 2026, not approve them or approve with specific changes. The TAC recommendation was approve supporting KDOT's federal performance measure targets as of 2026.
Are there any discussions or any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to understand, we got targets here, but how are we performing on these targets?
I would typically, for these, KDOT does not have, at least that I could find, the most recent targets published on their website. I have requested some of their data, but I don't want to put a specific number because I know there's sometimes things in the margin that could be different. But prior to this meeting, I looked at the raw data and what they sent, and I feel comfortable giving the trends. The fatalities have decreased from 23 to 24. The fatality rate has also decreased from 23 to 24. The number of serious injuries, the total number decreased, but the 5-year rolling average that is within these charts is pretty close to what it was the year before. Again, if once KDOT puts these on their official website, I would be so happy to point towards that so that they could do that. But I just don't want to put a number that they haven't actually put on that website. Again, the non-motorized metric here for fatalities and serious injuries is very slightly up from the year before. In their words, they chose these targets because they were realistic and attainable.
Any other questions?
Specifically for the metropolitan area, or is that statewide?
These are statewide targets.
Any other questions?
So we're being asked to adopt statewide targets for the metropolitan area.
We have the choice to either support the state targets, or we can develop our own targets for the metropolitan area. For years 23, 24, and 25, we've chosen to support the state targets.
This is Mayor Ashery again. So to that specific question, if we either support theirs or have our own, do we track this data within our own area?
We do. In our most recent Metropolitan Transportation Plan, if you go to the federal performance measure section, you can actually see what our year-over-year metrics were for WAMPO. It is something we're working on to make more easily visible to all of our jurisdictions on what these numbers are for the WAMPO region. The MTP has these metrics for the actuals for 2024 within it. For the WAMPO region, that is.
I don't want to pull this issue up, but I think it would be good that we would have that kind of information in these packets when we get these for future reference.
Certainly can do that.
This comes up every year as well, correct?
Yes, it is. It's again, it's another FHWA requirement that we either develop our own or support the KDOT federal performance measures.
Are there any other questions before we go to a vote? All right. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the supporting KDOT's federal performance measures target as of 2026 as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you, Peter. All right, the next item is item 5, discussion and updates. South routes to school update. Kim, welcome.
Yes, excited to have Chris Brown online. He's going to share the latest updates on safe routes to schools, and then I can stand for any questions. So, Chris.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Kim.
Thanks.
All right, yeah, so have several updates to provide on this planning process, mostly in regards to our existing conditions milestone coming up here and then some next steps for the spring. So jump right in. So we'll go through some existing conditions, talk about next steps, and then we'll also talk about some scheduling of meetings coming up here in the springtime. So existing conditions elements. So this is showing just a snapshot of the elements of these forthcoming reports that will be distributed out to the school districts and associated agencies. So we're doing these school district by school districts. We've completed Andover. We're working through Goddard and Wichita as we speak, and we'll just keep going down the line through the 10 or the 9 school districts plus the parochial schools that are participating at the moment. And so this is just identifying, again, all the different elements of this existing conditions analysis. So it's everything that would support identifying issue areas and for infrastructure or programs, and then supporting our future conversations of recommended projects and solutions. So I'll go through each of these one by one here. And so, key elements obviously include beyond just local planning efforts and things of that nature is what's going on in the transportation network and from a safety aspect, surrounding each school within a half-mile area. And so we looked at various data, including the sidewalk and bike network, which is organized by WAMPO staff, roadway functional classification, which is just really identifying the volumes and lanes and other components of the roadway that create an arterial, so a large roadway carrying a lot of traffic, down to a local neighborhood street. Those are, it's a good barometer for identifying potential barriers to cross roadways to get to the schools. Traffic volumes also support that. We have traffic control locations, so signals, marked crosswalks, and then looked at reported crash data for all crashes that were reported, as well as those that involved a pedestrian or bicyclist. So here's a map example. We'll be using the same template for all of the schools. And so this is just showing, again, all of the components of the existing conditions map. And then what I just went through here down the list. So you're seeing how the walking and bike network is connecting to the schools, the roadway network, existing traffic signals, volumes, and then some crash data. So you can see, those hot spots, those heat map locations where there's denser number of crashes at certain intersections, as well as those circles denoting where actually a person walking or biking was involved in a crash. We also are focusing in to the immediate school area, which is, where a lot of the conflicts happen. It's where that, 20 minutes of craziness, if you will, occurs before and after school. And so understanding how vehicles, parent vehicles, school buses are circulating through the site, where crosswalks are, where bike racks are, where the front doors of the school for students to access are, is all really important information for us to understand. So then we can, highlight those areas, those gaps, those conflict points, and think through immediately around the school how we can create a safer space for everybody. Now, this data is being supported by the walk audits that we completed last fall for nearly all of the schools, as well as in collaboration with the school districts to review at the appropriate time when those draft reports are submitted to them. We also will be organizing all of the engagement we've done. So this will be organized at the school district level, primarily down to the school level for the public comment map and student travel tallies. And so we're just showing here just some snapshots but much more data was collected for the engagement from all those 4 pieces of information to understand how students are traveling to from school today, how parents or caregivers feel about certain elements of safe routes to school, and having the ability to actually put on an interactive web map issue areas surrounding the schools that we should be considering. And this is an example of what that issue map is, or that public comment map is, identifying issues. So it's downloaded data now and put into our maps showing those walking, biking, or other safety concerns. And then all that raw data will be in a final report appendix, but we are just quickly summarizing with call-out boxes some of the most common feedback received for those locations to give you kind of a flavor, if you will, of the issues that parents, caregivers, or other community members may have identified surrounding the school. And then we're all getting, working hard and getting towards some other milestones that are forthcoming, which will be once we get all this existing conditions and issues identified, issue areas, then we can jump into the recommendations approach over the summer and completion in the fall. And so just a snapshot here of an example of a different Safe Routes to School study that the consultant team has completed in another community, and just kind of showing you the level of detail in which we'll be ending up here at the conclusion of this effort from a recommendation standpoint. This is showing infrastructure recommendations. So just denoted of the intersection or crossing or sidewalk or biking gap location. Brief description, some prioritization involved with that to help agencies and school districts understand the most critical locations for near-term improvements. And then in addition to this is all infrastructure related. We'll also have some of those other E's for the programmatic and policy pieces of Safe Routes to School recommended as well in those reports. So this is all forthcoming, but just wanted to provide you an update of what you can expect here over the next several months and what we're working on as we speak and completing here in the spring. So just a tentative schedule here as we're working through, as again, as I noted, we're rapidly getting through existing condition reports and issue identification. We are hoping to organize meetings again with the school district and the associated agency staffs to review all this information here in the spring, working through all this information over the summer, and then circling back in the fall for additional conversations and finalization of our reports and components of this effort. So this is our final year, and we're excited to get this all completed here over the next several months. So happy to answer any questions.
Yes, so we are working on these existing conditions reports, as Chris mentioned, and we will be sharing those out, as he mentioned, with the school district and, of course, the jurisdiction. We want you to be able to review that input and data and make sure we have all of the conditions down on paper before we actually then start looking at recommendations to go into those final plans. And we want to, of course, as he mentioned, have these in-person meetings to discuss what has been found, because we want to make sure that the recommendations are viable, good projects. We don't want to recommend something that the engineers then later say that can't be built. So we will be working very closely with you once we have these condition reports to make sure they're meeting the needs of your community and of your schools. So any questions?
Thanks, Kim.
Usher again, do you have a list of the districts?
Yes, and actually, if you go to wampo.org/SRTS, we have an interactive map that actually shows all of the schools that are working currently. And we will be adding, you can actually click on the school and find out some information. And so we will be updating that map, but I can also send you that list. And we are starting to recruit the next round of schools. So if you have any schools in your communities that you really want to see participating, please just let me know.
Thanks, Kim, and thanks, Chris. We will be sure to send those slides to members. Sorry, I didn't print it due to too much printing. So we'll be sure to send those by email to members. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thanks. There's no further questions. We will move on to item B, behavioral safety toolkit development.
Yes. So WAMPO staff have been working with the jurisdictions and hearing your concerns also about how do we engage the average resident in making our roadways more safe. We know you do a lot of work, and we know you also receive a lot of blame. And so we understand that it's everybody's initiative to make the roadway safer. So we're focusing in on the Safer People strategy of the Safe System approach. And we are working to develop basically a toolkit of resources, messaging, activities that you can do and share with the residents, especially if you have some of those passionate residents who are really interested in improving transportation safety in your community. And so I have reached out to many of your jurisdictions and asked if you have anyone who's interested in being involved in this committee. We also just did a brainstorming session with our ICT Safe Coalition, which was fantastic. We received all sorts of ideas that our staff had not thought of. So already we're on a good trajectory to develop some really creative and innovative ways that residents can engage in this process as well. So as I mentioned, resources will include, safety messaging, strategies to engage residents, and then activities for the residents of all ages. And again, we're looking for your input into this because we want to ensure that the resources that we provide out are relevant and useful for meeting your local community's needs. We anticipate this to be a pretty quick project. We anticipate completing it around July of this year, and we will have a safety hub on the WAMPO website that will have all sorts of safety data, and then, of course, all of these resources that we find. So, any questions on behavioral safety? Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kim. All right, next up we have Laura. Item C, projects obligated in FFY 2025.
Hello. Every year, the WAMPO staff put together an annual listing of obligated projects, and it's a required document that has all of the projects that had federal funds obligated for their completion in the previous federal fiscal year. So an obligation is a step that the federal government is officially obligated to provide awarded programmed funding for qualifying projects. In simpler words, obligation is the federal government's formal promise that they have money set aside and is ready to be spent. Some important considerations, the ALOP has all of the TIP projects that have obligated federal funding in the past federal fiscal year, but also projects that use non-suballocated funding are also put in there. And funds may be deobligated, and that's when a project is complete without using all previous obligated funds. And that will be represented with a negative amount in the charts that I'm about to show you. That just means that they had leftover funds. So this is a chart that shows all the federal funding that was obligated in FFY 2025 across our programs. About half of the total came from the suballocated programs like SDBG, CMAC, TA, and CRP. And then the other half came from the statewide public transit or non-suballocated programs. And as you can see, altogether, we had about $35 million in net federal obligations for the region. On this page, it shows the list of individual projects that received federal obligations or deobligations, like I said, by the negative sign. The numbers on the far left correspond with the labels in the map that you're about to see on the next slide, and it's also in your agenda packet on page 28. This shows all of the mappable projects that had federal obligations in FFY 2025. It shows where the federal dollars have been put to use during the federal fiscal year. Are there any questions?
Page 36, I think.
36? Okay.
All right, are there any questions for Laura? All right, thank you. All right, next item, committee partnership and updates. The executive committee met last week. The next meeting is on May 7th at 11 a.m. here in this building. Next, we have item B, Kansas Department of Transportation. Mike, are you online?
I am online. No report from Topeka today. I'm a little under the weather. I will be working with Chad and others. We'll see if we can get an update scheduled on our asset management plan update process. And we'll also go over our target setting process for the federal measures that Peter talked about earlier. So I'll work with Chad and get those updates for the board scheduled.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mike? All right, moving along to the Wichita, KDOT, JB.
Hi, good afternoon. Last Thursday, the Kansas Department of Transportation had an open house for the K-254 Rock, Webb, and Greenwich study. We were gathering public input, matching that with engineering criteria and going over some possible interchange designs. Of those interchange designs, we had a diverging diamond interchange, a diamond interchange, and a single point urban interchange. We did collect a lot of feedback from the public, but we would like the public to continue to provide their comments and feedback. There's a survey online at the K254 study website. That study is, they will be able to add comments until February 19th. That will be the cutoff date for the comment period regarding the study. Regarding construction happening in the Wichita Metro currently, we are closing down the inside lanes between Lincoln Street and Douglas Avenue on I-135. This is to help accommodate the installation of 2 piers for the new southbound I-135 to eastbound US 54 project that's currently taking place. And that will be in effect until 2027, or depending on how those piers are installed. Does anybody have any questions?
Seeing none. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next is item D, member jurisdiction updates. Does any member have any? Yes.
That'd be a 2-lane road.
Southbound
to eastbound.
So that will be that will be the connector from southbound I-135 to eastbound US 54. Currently, we have the original one, the southbound I-135 to US 54, eastbound US 54 open. We are closing one of the outside lanes, but we're going to keep that open until these new piers are completed and we can complete the entire ramp, and then we'll slowly divert traffic to that new ramp.
That'd be a 2-lane
ramp. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll get back to you on that.
I just point out too is the congestion is terrible right there at 5 o'clock. It backs up for miles. Is there any consideration of adding another lane from where that ramp goes into Kellogg all the way to Oliver? You know, past Hillside to Oliver. That's where it jams up, is right there.
So that would be the North Junction project.
No, this is on Kellogg.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
It's on Kellogg. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, the next item, item D, member jurisdiction updates. Are there any member updates from the TPB? None. We will move on to other business. Is there any other business? Becky.
Thank you, Chair. I brought this up at executive committee meeting last Thursday, and spoke with the chair and staff, and said that I was going to bring it up today. On the January WAMPO meeting, the December 9th WAMPO meeting, the city of Wichita wasn't here because we were in a 9-hour city council meeting. So I'm sorry we missed it. But one of the agenda items was on consent, and it was for hiring a consultant for the Regional Active Transportation Plan, their consultant contract. And it was to begin that day and end then the end of December of 2026. So essentially to be able to develop the plan for a year. I've had some conversations with other TPB members. I've had some conversations with community members, also with staff. The plan before this was the Pathway System Plan, and it was developed in 2007 and then updated in 2011. Nothing's happened since. We've had a lot more cycling, a lot more active transportation concerns since 2011. I asked staff during executive committee meeting if we took this on internally, as was suggested, because this item was not passed. So instead of hiring a consultant, the plan would be that it would go internally. it's estimated that instead of taking a year with a consultant, it could take 2 to 3 years for this plan to be completed. The other concern that I have, and I've spoke with Gary Jansen in engineering, and I asked him if he could be here today just to tell me when I'm wrong, is some of the work that is involved in this project would require an engineer. And the only engineer currently on the WAMPO staff is Chad, but he's not allowed, according with KDOT and billable hours, to do this type of work. So it would take 2 to 3 years instead of a year. We'd still have to hire some sort of consultant because there isn't an engineer on WAMPO. The other thing is the consultant that was selected just completed a regional transportation plan similar to this in Tulsa. So they bring some content expertise, which I think is great. I'm just wondering if, and again, I apologize that, I wasn't here, that the city wasn't here. I'd just like to see some robust discussion. I would like to make a motion if after discussion that we go back out and open this up to a contract again to see if a consultant would indeed, and we hope the consultant that was selected would try again. Legal's been consulted. We have to go back out. We can't just say the consultant that we selected before will be selected again, but we can do an expedited time frame. We don't maybe have to have it open for 3 months like before. We could have it open for a shorter time frame. So I'd like to hear others' discussion. The funding was in the budget. It was approved by KDOT. Everything was moving along. I think there was just, really robust discussion when we weren't here that, maybe we could potentially save the money. But to me, trying to do it internally, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I think in this case, going out and having the consultant do it would probably best serve not only WEP, but the region. So love to hear others' thoughts. And Gary, if you'd like to make any comments, please feel free to go to the podium.
So I was the one who actually went to staff and asked them about this because as I read the scope of work, it looked like it was just a compilation of the comprehensive plans that each of the cities have already done. And so 22 communities have these comprehensive plans. And so you bring those together and you create a metropolitan plan from those comprehensive plans. So it looked to me like 90% of the work was already done. And we need to do the 10% to complete the project. And that was my understanding of when I talked with staff. They said, yeah, that was pretty much what we needed to do. So I just questioned, is that $200,000 worth of work to take those plans and compile them into a one regional plan? And there was some concern that probably wasn't worth that much money, but that was just my question. And so that's why it was brought up to disallow the contract because staff thought they could take this on and do it themselves. Now, if they've had a change in opinion about that, that's fine. But I've not heard that except this discussion just now. So that's the reason for the question.
And I did reach out to Mayor Benaj. We had a great chat this morning and I appreciate it. So thank you for those comments as well. But again, I want to be fiscally conservative, want to save money anywhere that we can. But if it's going to take staff potentially 2 to 3 years to be able to put this together, and we have to still hire a consultant to get an engineer's perspective, that's still money. And WAMPO staff is still money. And I appreciate everything that the WAMPO team does, but I'm just aware that, there are limitations that we all have in our field. And without having an engineer that's able to do the work, we'd have to hire someone in anyway. So again, I'd like to hear others' perspective. If not, I'm willing to make a motion.
Sitting in on the discussion, the executive committee, I think the engineering piece of this is probably something that we missed when we discussed this at the last meeting. We voted it down, and I think with that additional information, knowing that there probably will be additional costs, plus the time element, I think the general consensus of the executive committee, I don't speak for all you guys, but I think it probably makes sense to have an outside interest do this and get it done sooner as opposed to later.
Any other discussion points?
Well, let me ask a question. Who uses this information and for what purpose? Is this something that we're doing because the requirements in the 2030 plan require that you have this? I mean, what do we do with this when it's all done?
Thank you, Mayor, and staff staff in general, all your servants, and if you recommend something, we follow that. How this is used is every 5 years when we develop a metropolitan transportation plan, there are several components in it that add up to updating the long-range transportation plan. For example, there are changes in commodity flows, that is freight plan development will be updated periodically. Similarly, variety of infrastructure changes are documented. And then, of course, the trails and the bike paths and sidewalks, all those are referred by communities. That is usual, how communities and parents use for children, in some trails and how they're updated. What are the future trails planned is always updated. These are some of the things that communities always use. And also monitoring how safety of that, infrastructure and the conditions and the changes. This documentation is common periodically. So that is how, Mayor, that we staff uses each component of the larger transportation plan, like freight is one component, and the transit is one component, and active transportation plan is one, highways and so on. So that's how, Mayor, that this is.
Any other discussion?
What's the role of the engineer in this study? Is it to kind of connect the various pieces that each community has?
Council member is correct that when you develop cost estimates for certain types of improvements and prioritizing projects that were identified, an engineer would be needed to see sometimes a ramp to a roadway from a trail at a river side can cost because of the culverts and so on. So those types of cost estimates that develop is one area, but there are other areas of analysis as well, safety and other various types of analysis that, those are some of the things that if you want to really do a, robust job and put all the effort and do a great job, then to include all the elements that are required, such as types of improvements and go into detail on cost estimates and all. If it is a simple identifying what are the future, connectivities, what are the future, how communities are connected. Like, for example, there's a connectivity between Bel Air and Keachai, Park City and, Valley Center. There was one bike path that was, that's an example of a simpler plan versus a robust plan that includes all elements in it. Hope I answered.
Well, and the other thing that we need, like I said, the staff time and whatnot, is we continually adding issues that we want staff to do. And like I say, now we're pushing the project. It's a year that's out to 2 and 3. How relevant is that information? And as when this program was put in 11 to now, I mean, all of our communities, most of us have experienced additional bike paths and this and that and the other things. And by getting it comprehensive and a more better grip on where they need to be and whatnot, because we've got a lot of money that we're going to be looking at spending on these things. We do need all the help and the best data that we could get. So I'd certainly be supportive of this.
Yeah, probably better to get the data faster or on the wait later. So it could be used quicker, I guess. Peter, did you have something? Or you just?
I was just, if someone had a question specifically on the scope, I just wanted to be available.
Okay. Any other discussion points?
What would be the time frame if we were to go back and reconsider this for completing this? Because I know, for example, our community is going through is updating our comprehensive plan currently, and I know there's a couple others that are out there doing that.
If we did put this back to an RFP, theoretically it'd be possible to get this back if we did a very short advertisement window as soon as March 10th for the next TPP, but that would come with some risks. More likely would be the April TPP meeting for a consent item, and then we would have a plan completion a year from that April. So April of 2027 would be a good estimated date if we went with our new RFP route.
Thank you, Peter. And staff is respectful of board members. So your recommendation, we're just servants and we just follow what you recommend.
Any other discussion? Becky, would you like to make your motion?
I would. Thank you so much for the discussion and thank you for your consideration on this. And thank you to community members and staff and other TPP members who have reached out to me. With that, I would move that an RFP be issued to hire a consultant to develop a regional active transportation plan not to exceed $199,847 utilizing a project selection committee.
So we have the motion on the floor and seconded. So you said 199,800, which
Yeah,
is
so that's what it was in December when the original RFP was selected, that it was, the contract was, so I guess it could even be, that's what it was previously. We could even just make it easy and go up to 200,000, or if staff remembers what the project limit was before, but that was in the original action item on December 9th of 2025.
Let's look at our past meeting notes. Shows 199,925. So I think if you said 200,000, that'd be okay.
I would amend my motion to be 200,000.
What about? So second, would you amend your approve the second? All right. All right. So all right, we have motion and second for Becky's motion. Any discussion?
I haven't been convinced that this is a needed thing to do. It's almost like you could take these comprehensive plans and make a book form and be done with this. I don't know all the ins and outs of what check boxes you have to do for approval with the federal government and that kind of thing. So it's probably a little more involved in that, but I'm not convinced that this is a $200,000 project that we're looking for. And I just think there are better ways of going about this. So I will vote against this motion.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. So the motion passes.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Any other business? If there's no other business, we will move on to item 8, which is adjournment. We'd like to make a motion to adjourn tonight. We have a motion and a second to adjourn today's meeting. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right.